Pro Bowl tight end Greg Olsen. How you been, Greg?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. You bet. What did you watch the Monday Night Football game last night? Catch any of it?
I watched the first half live, and I'm actually at the facility as we speak, kind of watching it more on a coach's film, not so much the TV copy type stuff like we do at home. So it was obviously a great game. Oakland is playing as well as anybody in the league, so it's going to be a big challenge for us this weekend for sure.
I want to talk to you about what a lot of fans are talking about, the officiating, and I'm wondering, would you want to have the officials just keep the whistle in their pocket on a play like DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, what's your take as a receiver in this league, seeing what happened with the Texans and Hopkins last night?
Yes, I did see that live. I think it's very similar to, questionable whether a quarterback fumbled or was his hand going forward. I think in those situations, because you have the opportunity of a replay, just let the play out, and then you can always fix it the other way. I think once a play is blown dead, there is no going back. So I just think err on the side of caution. If you're unsure, let it play out. And if he did happen to step out of bounds, the replay will show that, and no harm, no foul. Same thing. A quarterback fumbling in the pocket versus an incomplete pass. So I think when you can replay it the other way, let's play it safe and just keep the play alive.
What would you say about replaying everything? Spotting of the football, plays like this, even pass interference, Greg. Where would you stand on that?
The pass interference stuff is tough as a replay. I just think that's such a subjective call. I still think there's a human element to those sort of calls, but black and white calls such as stepped out of bounds, we've seen it now with complete and incomplete passes. That's very black and white, to a degree with the incomplete passes. I get the caveat of going to the ground. Still, nobody seems to understand. But for the most part, it's very black and white. I think it's funny. We all watch tennis and we watched the Olympic volleyballs, and they have down to the millimeter graphics of whether a ball was in or out of balls that are hit 150 miles an hour serves. And you'd think that with our game we could have technology to know if a guy's in or out of bounds. Especially when you have a play that was as significant as last night. Greg
Olsen, Panthers tight end, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. How's Luke Kuechly doing?
I think he's doing all right. Obviously, that was a scary sight on Thursday, and forget how good of a player he is, forget any of that. Just to see one of your guys, visibly and understandably shaken up was a scary sight for everybody watching at home as well as all of us in the stadium. So, I think he's doing okay. I've seen him around the facility. Obviously those things are tricky, and our number one concern is just hopefully that he's okay, moving forward, not necessarily, how fast we'll get him back on the field.
Well, look, I know you're not a doctor, nor am I, but I'm wondering if you can give some insight into what really disturbed me and disturbed a lot of fans was the tears. Was that something that was in real time where he realized something had happened to him and knows what those effects previously were and was reacting to it? Or was that something medical that he couldn't control, Greg?
I think it's hard. I think it's hard to speculate. I think it's hard to kind of speak on someone else's experience. Being in those situations and being in the heat of the moment sometimes, I think sometimes your emotions get the best of you. And I think there's a variety of reasons why that happens, whether injury related or not, in games like this. He's an emotional guy. He's an intense guy. And I think for whatever reason, I think he would have to be the one to answer that. But it was obviously very emotional and very, it was hard to watch. I think it obviously was probably even harder for him to go through that. And, it was just a real scary scene and a scene that, makes you take a step back and just, really appreciate what guys are willing to put their bodies on the line and their lives on the line for this game. And, just take a step back and realize that these are guys, men, people playing this game. And regardless of what team they're on and whether you root for them, those are sights that, nobody wants to see.
Certainly words to heat on this Thanksgiving week. I'm chatting with Greg Olsen here on the Rich Eisen Show. I get asked this question all the time, so I'll ask it. Let's just turn it right to you. What has been wrong with the Panthers this year at 4-6 entering week dozen here, Greg? Can you put your finger on what might be a little bit off about the defending NFC champs here this year?
I wish I could. I think, each game kind of tells its own story. I think if we went week by week, I could give you specific answers. Starting off the start of the season, left a couple, drives there and then gave ourselves a chance at the end. And, those were plays that Graham has made for us so many times, and for whatever reason, they don't go our way. And then other times our offense plays well and our defense struggles. And then games like the Chiefs where our defense dominates and our offense hands the ball away. It just seems like each week in those 6 losses, you can just find an element of the game, an element of the team that just for whatever reason wasn't clicking, and things that we've taken for granted maybe that we're going to make those plays and we're not going to do those negative things. And for whatever reason this year they're rearing their head. And that's this sport. That's this game. It's highly competitive. The margin for error is very small, and we just haven't been good enough. That's been the bottom line. And we have as big a 2 weeks on our schedule as we'll have all year. And starting this weekend against a very good Oakland team on the road. So we need to play better, and we need to play better more consistently. That's for sure.
So the poll question today is, what's the greatest rivalry in college football, Greg? And we did not include anything to do with the Miami Hurricanes. Who would you consider the biggest rival of the Miami Hurricanes?
I think Florida State. And I know a lot of people, through history, they had a lot of big rivalry games against Notre Dame and, Florida, obviously UF. I just think Florida State, the amount of times we play them, being a conference opponent all the way back to the Big East and now here in the ACC, we've played so many nail-biter games. Of course, all the, the wide rights and the wide lefts. Seems like they've been on a lot of national stages. Even when I was there, we played them in a BCS game. So I just think, there's been a lot of, intense games. A lot of, big-time players have participated in that rivalry from both sides, household names, Hall of Fame names. I think that Miami-Florida State, I think if Miami can get back now as a national contender, we can now start kind of putting that matchup in the likes with the likes of Michigan, Ohio State, and some of these rivalries that have taken shape over the last few years.
And before we get to fanchess.com, I've got Brian Urlacher in studio in hour number 3, Greg. And
is he there right now? Oh, he's not there.
He's not in right now, no, but he's coming in hour number 3. I'm assuming he's one of the best teammates you've ever had, right, Greg? He's the
best. I've told Brian this. I've said it privately to him. He's a good friend of mine from back my rookie year when I got drafted. He was one of the first guys. I mean, I'll never forget. I'm working out in the weight room, and you're a young rookie. You're just trying to stay out of the way. And I was on like the bench or whatever part of the workout, and sure enough, a guy comes in and says, "Hey, you mind if I work in with you? There's no more benches open." And I look up from my seat, and it's Brian Urlacher. I said, "Well, you can have the whole thing. You're Brian Urlacher." And I've said this publicly. I've said it to Brian privately. He has had the single greatest impact on my career than any person that I've come across as a teammate. I mean, the way he treated people, didn't matter if you were a rookie, a 10-year vet, the guy making, serving dinner, or the GM. He treated everybody the same. He treated everybody with amazing respect. He was an incredible teammate, and I have nothing. I can't say enough positives about what he did for me, teaching me how to be a pro. And here I am now as a 10-year vet, and I try to act, very similar, the best I can. Obviously not to his level as a player, but as a person in the facility. His example was tremendous.
Wow, that was quite a moving answer. One of the reasons why I asked it is, Greg, you know me, you've seen me in person. Brian Urlacher and I used to be teammates on a certain team of individuals that were follically challenged.
I know.
And now, and now he's turned his back on me and everybody on this team, and I honestly don't know how to handle it.
I don't blame you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry he turned his back on you. He was always a good teammate to me. But
yeah.
I think you look great, Rich. I don't think you need to go any different direction. I think you're looking great.
Thanks, Greg. I kind of needed that. But I just don't know how to handle it with Brian. When he comes in later on, he's going to have this.
He looks great, doesn't he, though? I mean, can we talk about that for a second?
Sure, please go. Yeah, go.
No, that's it. Literally a second. I just think that that captures the entire. He looks for a guy that was universally recognized and praised and worshipped as a player and a person being a bald head. He really pulls off the full head pretty good, doesn't he?
Well, I'll let you know when I see it in person in a couple hours. I'm still, again, I just feel like he left me behind.
Yeah, you have a little different take than I do. I probably have another year or two left.
Oh, no.
I'm in the bald crowd. I got the front line is abandoning me. So I might be with you fast.
Yeah, be careful. That two-front war can creep up on you. You never know when that's going to happen.
Those power alleys go fast.
What's going on with fanchest.com? Tell me what you're doing with Fanchest, Greg.
It's been an unbelievable partnership, and both with our foundation and their support of us, and it's really this time of year, the gift-giving season. I mean, if you're a sports fan, if you're a fan of any particular sport or a particular team, I mean, this is your answer. I mean, if you go on their website, fanchest.com, and pick your box, they'll curate a box of one-of-a-kind sports merchandise, memorabilia, all licensed and packaged and sent directly to your doorstep. And if you're looking for a gift for any sport fan in your life, it'd be a great place to start. And I know we've used them this holiday season already, and I think it's something that everybody would really enjoy.
Fanchest.com. Go ahead and visit it. Greg, have a great Thanksgiving. Appreciate the time here.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. That's Greg Olsen. Anytime.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.